a person can make a choice and leap into faith, go beyond man and there find the root of existence. These two options are described in a most clear manner in the book of Koheles, Ecclesiastes, where we find that Shlomo HaMelech begins, King Solomon, by saying, after having investigated so many different areas of wisdom, of society, of individual experience, Havel Havalim, vanity of vanities, says Kohelet, who gathered in all possible human experience, all is vain and meaningless. And so he describes how everything in life is a cycle, which begins with growth, but then transforms into decay, only to make room for something else to grow and go through the same cycle. At the conclusion of that book, he writes, the end of the matter, when everything has been heard, is fear God, observe His commandments, for this is the whole of man, which means this is the whole meaning of man. Man has the choice. Either he can accept life within its own terms, accept himself within his own terms, where everything is relative, and everything is only born to die, is only created to disappear, and there is nothing but vanity. But if a person goes beyond this, he recognizes that surely there must be a source to this experience of man that is beyond man's relative experience, then he will find God. And then everything takes on meaning. Then there is a place for values and for freedom and for purpose. This is the soft Dvar, after one has analyzed all other aspects of human experience. The same idea is expressed in chapter 22 of Genesis, in the cryptic command of God to Abraham to offer up his son as a sacrifice to God, which went against all human feelings of love, as this was the most valuable object of his love, went against all morality that he had preached, as it was murder of his own son. It went against all reason, as it had been promised that from this son there would come a great nation. And the significance of this test of faith was to see if he was ready to make that leap of faith, to go beyond human emotions, morality and reason, to find God. That is the deeper explanation of the Akedah given in the Midrashim and the close reading of the sages, and also discovered more recently by the existentialists. But not only they, also some of the logical positivists who follow the principle that only those aspects of life which can pass the test of logic and sense perception are reality, and everything else is an illusion. And the father of this school of thought, Wittgenstein, he wrote a book in 6 chapters following out this analysis of language, a philosophical discussion, and thereby breaking down so many gods and religious ideas of man. But when he comes to the end of the 6th chapter, he writes, when you have climbed the ladder of positivism, then you can cast it away, for it no longer has any value. And the 7th chapter is just one sentence, which has become famous in present-day thought. Of that of which one cannot speak, one has to remain silent. Thereby expressing, that is how his disciples interpret it, that whilst it's true that language deals with human experience and relationships, and therefore, in an exact scientific fashion, applies to logic and sense perception. And that is reality in terms of language. But there is a reality which is beyond the ladder of language. And although he was a logical positivist, he was also a mystic, an existentialist, recognizing that there is a higher reality which, however, cannot be discussed exactly in language. So the option lies before man. Is he going to subject his life to relativism? That means to human experience. Or is he going to recognize that human experience is related to an aspect of being which is beyond man? In the moral sense, this is beautifully described in a phrase by Rabbi ibn Pakuda, that man is either an eved leyitzra or leyotzra. He is a servant to his own inclination, or we may say to projections of his inclination, to making himself into a god, or his reason into a god, or his own morality into a god, or he's going to subject himself to his creator, to the one who lies beyond him, and recognize that there is a transcendental absolute existence to which man is related, just as the image is related to the original, B'Tselem Elokim. This brings us to the second approach towards the truth of God, the emotional one. For man is not only aware of his basic existence and of the existence around him, he is a bundle of conflicting emotions. And the emotions of man can also lead him to God. Man has a need for security. And as is described in a recent work by Dr. Mays, Why I Believe There Is a God, because man is finite, weak and frail, and he is always seeking strength and support from some source beyond himself. The strongest man physically is relatively weak. He seeks other aids to strengthen him. The wisest man is ignorant of most things and doesn't know all there is to know. Man is a creature, and in a crisis situation such as ultimate sickness, disease and death, we are all equally helpless, whether rich or poor, high or low, learned or unlearned. So each man relies on other people and things to gain strength. Friends, the family, the race, the state, and nature itself. But none of these things is strong enough to satisfy man's desire for security. He longs for something which these cannot give. He may not admit it, but he yearns for a power stronger than man, stronger than the nation. He yearns for God. Similarly, one of the greatest recent psychologists, Carl Jung, has written that he has not found any person who's come to him beyond the age of adolescence with psychological problems who would not have found solace had he retained a religious orientation.